Yo, what is up guys? My name is Berkeley and welcome back to my channel. And in today's video we'll be taking a look at the trade-in event that has started today on 7th of February and will last for 2 weeks in World of Tanks. So if you didn't know, the trade-in event is basically Wargaming buying back your old premium tanks, and well, it could be new premium tanks as well if you really wish to sell it back to Wargaming for 50% of the cost. That can be used towards buying a new premium tank. Now, full disclosure, I'm not a big fan of this event. I don't think it's really fair to sell back your premium tank at 50% of the cost. But at the same time, I do like that they give the option to basically sell back the unwanted premium tanks that you got from the marathons, such as the Dickermax, or it could be the Tog 2. I know it's a meme tank, I know some of you are gonna be pissed that I sold it back, but I mean, that was the first tank I traded in. I mean, it's a meme tank, but that's about it. So today's video is gonna be about what tanks to trade in and what tanks to buy instead. Now, as I said, I'm against trading in premium tanks, but I will say this: as long as it's not a tier 8 or some of the special tier 7s, I'm absolutely fine with it. So I would never sell or trade in a tier 8 premium tank. And that's simply because I still hope that bad tanks like the KV5 and IS-6 and some of the other tier 8 premium tanks will get some love from Wargaming sometime in the future. I really do hope that will be soon. But other than that, you could, I mean, it's up to you, and I guess it's your choice. If you're tired of the tier 8 premium tank and you don't see yourself playing it in the future, then go ahead and trade it in. And in this iteration, they have added some new premium tanks that can be traded in and can be bought. The new premium tanks that can be bought with the trade-in: the 88mm Yak Tiger, the AC4 Experimental. Yeah, alright, like someone's gonna trade another tank in to get the AC4 Experimental. Okay, nice try, Wargaming. The M56 Scorpion. I'm not a big fan of that tank. Some people like it, some people say it's the next thing to E25, but I disagree. I don't think it's a good tank at all. It needs massive gun handling buffs, and as well as a little bit of DPM perhaps. Not to mention the mobility of that tank isn't great either. The AMX M4 Emily 49. I quite like that tank. I think it's okay. I mean, it's not great, but it's not bad either. The Panzer 58 Muts, I think it's a bit outdated when compared to the tanks like T26E5, and as well as the M46 Patton KR. It's a good tank, I kind of enjoy it, but still with the tanks like T26E5, Scorpion G and Defender, it's just feels a little bit outdated. Now that we got the basics out of the way, let's go into the game and see what tanks are must buy if you were looking into buying a new premium tank. So to make my life a bit easier, I'm just gonna go in nation by nation and take a look at some of the tanks that are worth trading in for, and some of the tanks that you should avoid. So first up we have the German nation. For tank destroyers at tier 8, we only have the Yak Tiger 8.8, which I would say avoid. It is so outdated. It has great DPM. The frontal armor is not too bad, but it's just slow, not maneuverable. And also the penetration on the gun is really low. 203 on the standard ammunition and 235 on the premium ammunition, which is really low with the introduction of super heavy tanks especially. The Panzer 58 Muts, it's an okay tank if you're looking for a German medium tank crew trainer. It's a okay tank, but I still prefer the Panzer 8.8 over the Muts, because, I mean, even though the Panzer 88 has slightly worse mobility, it still has great DPM, great accuracy, and also another downside of this tank, it gets the same gun as the Jagdtag 8.8, so you only have 203 penetration with the standard ammo, which is fine, but with the premium ammo you only get 235, which is quite frustrating sometimes. Löwe, ever since the latest buffs, it's been amazing. I highly recommend that tank if you're looking for a German heavy tank crew chainer. The damage per meter is quite low on this tank, and it's quite slow as well, but you get minus 10 degrees of gun depression, excellent turret as long as you are facing the enemies, and the only weakness on the turret of this tank is the very small cupola, which is practically not possible to hit if you are using 10 degrees of gun depression. I'm not gonna go into tier 7s and tier 6 because, I mean, it's just gonna take too long for me to make this video and I will probably bore you to death. So going into the Soviet tech tree, my personal favorite tier 8 premium tank lately, T-54 Mod 1. If you don't have it, I mean, you have to try it. It's amazing, and in patch 9.22, which was just released, it also got a small buff to the mobility. It used to be like 16 horsepower, I think, 15-16 horsepower per ton, but now it has 21.23 horsepower per ton. I mean, I can't wait to try this tank. The IS-6 Avoid, I mean, it's almost unplayable with the introduction of super heavies, and that's all the tier 8 premium tanks we have for the Soviet tech tree, which is kind of funny. Okay, moving on, the Americans. We have the T-26E4 Super Pershing. It's very slow and the armor isn't great because the turret will be penetrated, the sides are really weak as well, but sometimes you block like 3-4k damage, sometimes you don't block anything, so I mean, it's not a really great tank. But still, due to the preferential matchmaking, I perform quite well in this tank. And if you were to choose between the T-26E4 and the M46 Korean, then definitely the M46. Just because of the mobility and the gun handling, I think it's just a far better tank than the T-26E4. And you also get some nice armor on the turret as well. The T-34, it's very sluggish and it's a one-trick pony. You only have that strong turret and that's about it. Before it used to have a great turret as well, but with the introduction of Defender, the Maubrasher and some others, I mean, the alpha just became average. Of course, worth mentioning, it does have a great penetration, and it's also one of the best credit makers in this game. I mean, something to do with the credit earning coefficient or something like that, but it does make a lot of credits and you don't need to spend money on the premium ammunition. Moving on to the French nation, we have the M4A1 Revalorize, which is a good tank. It was also recently buffed. The mobility is a bit lacking for a medium tank, but it performs absolutely fine. And you also get that amazing shell velocity. You basically need to click and your shell will be hitting the tanks. It is a quite nice tank, and if you were to choose between the M4A1 and the CDC, it's a no-brainer. The CDC is very outdated, and I think it just needs some tweaks. When the CDC was just introduced, I've played this tank practically non-stop, and it's one of my most played premium tanks. I used to love it back then, but now it's just don't, trust me. And the M449 is quite a nice premium tank. The frontal armor is like, it's strong against anything below tier 8. It's okay against the tier 8, and it just gets weak against anything above tier 8. So if you were to choose between the Löwe and the M449, I would definitely recommend the Löwe just because of the armor. but this tank does get better mobility and gets better DPM as well. Let's move on to the British tech tree. And for tier 8 we only have one tank, the FV4202. I quite like this tank. I mean, they just kept buffing and buffing. They buffed the mobility, they buffed the mobility again, and they buffed the turret, they buffed the hull armor. I mean, currently it is very nice. It gets a yes from me if you were looking for a British crew trainer. I mean, I highly recommend it. It's not for everyone though. It has kind of low alpha. It doesn't have anything amazing about it, but it's okay. Moving on to the Chinese. Moving on to the Chinese nation, we have the WZ120-1FT. This tank is just pure awesomeness. It has 440 alpha. The damage per minute on this tank is almost like a tier 10 TD. And it is loads of fun. It has great mobility. The armor profile is a bit tricky to pen as well if you angle it well. And this tank is borderline OP, to be honest. The only downside of this tank is that it doesn't have a turret and it's a TD. Even more though, it's a Chinese TD, which I will not be researching anytime in the future. Purely as a premium tank, it's absolutely great. And it's definitely one of the best tier 8 premium tanks at the moment. The 112 is a bit outdated. The gun is quite bad. The only thing that makes this tank better than the IS-6 is the armor profile. It's just awesome. Worth mentioning, it gets preferential matchmaking as well. The T-34-3 is also quite nice since the recent buffs. I think it's worth looking into. But you will have to be a little bit patient with the gun, as it's still quite bad, the gun handling, and the penetration is only 175, but you do get 250 hit ammo with the T-34-3 and the 112, so that's quite good. Japan, the STA-2, same situation as the CDC. It's quite outdated. It has better gun handling, much better gun handling than the CDC. But the one thing that I absolutely hate about this tank is the shell velocity. It is absolutely trash, and don't buy this tank before trying it on the test server or something like that. For the Czech nation, we don't have any tier 8 premium tanks, but the Skoda T40 is quite nice, so yeah, I mean, if you are looking to buy a tier 6 premium tank, then Skoda T40 is quite okay. But I would still prefer the Type 64, the Chinese light tank. Moving on to the Sweden, we have the STRV S1, which is again one of the best tier 8 premium tanks for credit making. The siege mode is kind of annoying, but once you get used to it, I mean, it's a really good tank with excellent accuracy, not to mention the 288mm of penetration, one of the best at tier 8. If you were into that kind of gameplay, then it's definitely one of my most recommended premium tanks to make credits. So that's it for today's video, guys. Hope you found it useful. I hope I gave you some suggestions or perhaps helped you make up your mind. If you like this video, as always, smash that like button. Do leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.